Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent computer role-playing game. This week I'm taking a look at a game that's related to one that I covered quite some time ago. Developed and published by Behold Studios, Galaxy of Pen and Paper was released back in July of 2017. Galaxy of Pen and Paper is a sort of casual, pixel graphics, turn-based role-playing game with a sci-fi theme. If you've played Knights of Pen and Paper, it's very similar, except with the rules more focused for a sci-fi feel. It is a sort of parody of pen and paper role-playing games, having two parallel storylines, one involving the players of the game and one of the characters that they play. Although extremely simple in terms of mechanics, basically involving moving from point to point and engaging in encounters, it has the same sort of built-in encounter and quest selection system as its predecessor, allowing you to set your own challenges as play goes on. In terms of plot, you play as both the GM and the players of a sci-fi tabletop role-playing game called DERPS, being played over some sort of network connection. Supposedly set in the year 1999, although there's some liberties taken there, it's barely recognizable as such. It has the game master attempting to run a serious game through interruptions from family, online trolls, and more. When you create a new game, you are given the intro where the GM and the players are setting up, during which you create your characters. Initially, you create a GM and two players, although you may get a chance to create up to two more players during the game itself. GM creation simply allows you to name and customize your GM's looks, and thus has no real effect on the game as a whole. The players, however, are a mix of both the player themselves and the character that they play. Each player has four main stats. Power affects damage, body affects hit points, shield and threat, mind affects SP and shield, while senses affect initiative, shield regeneration, critical chance, and critical damage. Characters may also select a role player type, a race, and a class. Each of these provides a modifier to the four main stats, as well as a passive effect. The class, furthermore, affects what skills that they actually get once in the game. There are a fairly large number of all three character elements. To start with, role player types include the Achiever, Buddy, Munchkin, Show-Off, Slayer, Socializer, Storyteller, Thinker, Romantic, Explorer, Provider, Tragedian, and Anarchist. Races include the Human, Green, Simian, Reptoid, and Mechan. Character classes include Bounty Hunter, Engineer, Gadgeteer, and Trooper. As you progress through the game, you may get the ability to unlock additional options. Once you've created the GM and two characters, the intro continues, and then you are able to both examine your characters in greater detail and get used to the encounter system. In the game proper, once you've got through the few intro encounters, you can examine the more detailed stats your characters have. Aside from the primary four that I mentioned before, there are three active combat gauges. There's hit points, which represent your life, then shield, which is degraded with each attack the character receives. While some attacks may pierce the shield to reach hit points, generally speaking each attack must pierce through the shield before damaging hit points itself. Shield does regenerate each turn. The third gauge is SP, which is energy that the character uses for special skills. During the game, if you are brought down to 0 hit points, you are knocked out of the fight, and if everybody dies, then you are returned to the medbay on the ship with a mild experience penalty. Then there's secondary stats. Damage done with basic attacks, shield regeneration each turn, initiative that determines how quickly a character acts, threat that determines whether they're targeted by enemies, critical chance, critical damage bonus, and dodge percentage. Above all of these stats are also the experience accrued. When you reach certain experience totals, you basically improve in level, which gives you flat improvements to all of your stats. On the right-hand side, you have your skills. You don't really need to invest any points or anything into these skills, rather each character has access to all of the skills for their class at all times. However, you do have a limited number of slots in which to equip them for actual use. More slots unlock as you gain levels. The next tab is the inventory. Each character can equip a limited number of gadgets. These are not divided into specific categories, although most characters can only equip one of any individual gadget. There's also items that can be used in combat, basically consumables, miscellaneous items that are gathered for trade or for quests, and finally spaceship items that can be used in spaceship combat. In the upper right, there are two major currencies in the game, reputation and credits, which are acquired during the game after missions and encounters. Credits are used to purchase in-game items, gadgets, and consumables from shops, while reputation is accrued over time and unlocks various reward tiers. During exploration and play, you have your characters arrayed along the bottom of the screen. Clicking on their information tab will open the aforementioned character sheet. Once you've unlocked them, the mission creation screen and list of current missions and quests and what you need to do for each on the upper left-hand side of the screen. Mission creation allows you to create your own filler missions to gain experience and money between main quest missions. Creating a mission lets you view the reputation awards across the top of the screen. As you gain reputation, as I mentioned before, you can unlock certain flat bonuses. Creating a mission allows you to select a mission type as well. Once you play through the main quest, different types of missions are unlocked at each point. Once you select a mission type, you select the NPC that gives it to you, which can impact your targets as well as where you go to fulfill them. You then select a planet, which sets where you have to go. After this, you are given a description of the mission and the rewards, which is usually an amount of reputation, while you may then decide whether to start or cancel the mission. These are in addition to any main quest missions you have, and you can have a couple of these at any one time. On the right-hand side is your location control panel, which will vary depending on where you are. There's a few different types of place screens that you can be in the game. One is on your ship, which you acquire a few missions in. One is traveling through space in a system. One is in a location on the planet's surface. And then the final mode is on the planet's surface in exploration mode. On the ship, the top icon is space travel, dropping you into the system navigation mode, then planet land, which puts you on the particular location on a planet, usually a spaceport. If it's a small quote-unquote planet, such as an asteroid, space station, etc., that may be the only location available. Under this is Team Formation, where you may adjust your characters in up to 6 spots on the combat formation grid. There's a meta shop that allows you to select up to 2 things to decorate your desk with as well. Each of these grants a flat bonus of special ability, and you can unlock more of them as you proceed through the main quest. Finally, there's the question mark, which is an area on the ship with a mysterious locked door. In the system navigation mode, you have various places that you can enter laid out before you. Clicking on them moves your ship towards the target, during which random encounter rolls may take place. Icons can indicate what to expect at a location, as will a text box when the location is moused over. Once you arrive on a planet, you have an icon that you can click to effectively enter it, landing the ship at the planet's default starting location. On something like a wormhole or a jump point, you can use that to switch between sectors. Exploring a planet is much the same as system navigation, except that individual locations on a planet are arrayed as nodes on a path. You can only move between locations connected by a path, which can restrict your exploration options. As for what you can do on an individual location on a planet, it varies depending on location type. The uppermost icon lets you enter planet exploration mode, if this is possible on that planet. After this, you get an icon that lets you board your ship once more, provided you're in the planet's start location / spaceport / whatever. On the bottom, you will get the Team Formation button from before, as well as a Medbay visit icon that heals your party up. Other locations? They offer other options. Some nodes allow you to create a battle from creatures in the area. Others may allow you to scan, once you've unlocked the scanner, for rare minerals. If there's an NPC that you can speak with, denoted by a dialogue bubble, you can speak with them. This can unlock events, new stores, or just provide background information and more. High mortality areas are areas with bosses that you can engage with to create a specific battle option. Cities may offer shops where you can purchase gadgets and items, while there are many other shops that may allow you to upgrade other gear. During play, whether it be during a quest as a result of an event at a location or a random encounter, you may be presented with different dialogue events. These generally present the event in text and then offer different response options based on your character's 4 main abilities. These events often have an optimal option amongst the 4 or have different outcomes based on which one you pick. During quests, you will inevitably enter combat. There's 2 types of combat in Galaxy of Pen and Paper. Simplest is the ship-to-ship combat. This just pictures you versus a hostile ship. Each ship has hull strength, damage, shield percentage, and action points. On your turn, your action points are determined by your dice. This starts at a D4 but upgrades to larger numbers of sides as you play through the main quest. It's handled as a sort of metagame concept within the game itself. On your turn, the number of options you are able to execute are given along the bottom of the screen along with their required action points. This generally includes a basic attack, healing the hull, and a special action. You can also end the turn, which carries your action points over to the next turn. If you have consumable items, you may click here to use them. Space combat basically presents you with your actions to attack the enemy and heal your ship until you're out of action points, and then passing the turn over. Each ship takes their turn until one is destroyed. Simple enough, the more you used a particular action, the more it costs in action points that particular round, so there's not sort of an kind of infinite supply of them, so you got to keep that in mind. If you win a fight, your hull is instantly restored to maximum, and you gain credits and experience, as well as potentially additional items. Now, combat on the planet's surface gives you more options. For most combats, mission or otherwise, you can actually create your combat out of a menu of creatures available at a particular node. Quests and missions generally give you a total number of creatures to fight, but generally speaking, these don't have to be faced all at once in one combat. You can page through the creatures available and see their stats, hit points, shield, damage, crit, dodge, and what special skill they have. You can add creatures to the combat as you wish, which will increase the difficulty. If you add enough creatures, you can get additional credits, additional experience, or a chance at additional loot. Some combats, however, especially boss combats in the main quest, do not give the option to set them up first and must be undertaken as is. However, the fight is arrived at, your party is arrayed on the left-hand side in a formation that you set, while the enemies are on the right. Each side has 2 rows, which can be allowing certain creatures, enemies, or party members to provide cover to those behind them. Furthermore, this governs which are considered adjacent to one another for the purposes of skills. At the top of the screen is your initiative order. This is determined by the random initiative range for each creature and character. This can help you plan your order of abilities. At the bottom of the screen are your character's current selected abilities, which usually consists of your basic attack, whatever equipped skill or skills that the character has, the ability to use an item, and then strategic effects such as modifying where the character is in the formation, waiting until later in the initiative, and fleeing. Generally speaking, using an item does not take a character's turn, although only one item can be used on any particular character's given turn, but everything else takes the character's turn to use unless they have some sort of effect that prevents that. Combat basically proceeds along the initiative turn order until one side or the other is defeated. On a success, the party gets credits, experience, and possibly additional items. If they get wiped out, they arrive in the med bay. All in all, it's very similar to Knights of Pen and Paper in this regard, just expanding on the systems a bit to fit the sci-fi based setting. If you enjoyed that prior game, you'll probably find this one interesting as well. Graphically, the game uses a pixel art style that is rather well done, with locations in the game seeming well realized, often with little animated elements that can be interesting to watch. The transitions between the gamescape and the GM's room, where the flow of the game is interrupted, flows fairly well. Musically, the selection is decent, and although the tracks may wear on one during a longer play session, this is not the fault of the repetitiveness of any one individual track, but rather just the nature of the game itself. The sound design is a little on the arcadey style, although that fits in well with the aesthetic. Similarly to the first game, the writing relies a lot on humor and parody, and honestly, I think it hits more often than it misses, at least in my opinion. It can be amusing to see the various tropes that are involved. The whole concept of having both the tale of the role-playing group and the story that they're playing kind of intertwined with one another is nice. As a fan of both types of gaming, I found a few of the events and jokes to be pretty relatable. The flexibility of creating your own missions and combats is a staple of the series, and I think it adds a lot to the idea that you're not just playing the players, but also the GM. The fact that you can select which way to address certain story elements adds to this feel. It's kind of hard to describe, but it genuinely does feel like you're playing a group of role players playing a game. Sometimes getting lost in the story, sometimes getting abruptly pulled back to the player and GM's real life, and I find that kind of charming. The use of dice rolls to resolve things behind the scenes, even if rather simplified and not always well explained, certainly doesn't hurt that either. I will say that some of the new systems aren't as well developed as they could be, and gameplay can get a little bit repetitive, making this game, at least in my book, more suited for short sessions of gameplay rather than long hauls. I do like the little permanent additions to the game through reputation and the table decorations, as well as the choice of various gaming supplements that unlock content as the game goes on, although I feel that it's a little bit more limited than the prior game in the series. I do think this one is worth looking into, but only if you're a fan of both tabletop gaming and computer role-playing games, or at least the tropes thereof. If you like things like The Gamers or Journey Quest, you might want to pick this one up on sale. Either that or Knights of Pen and Paper from the same developer. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, Galaxy of Pen and Paper. As always, I'll drop a link to where you can pick it up below. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye. And if you're still watching this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who have supported this channel via Patreon or direct donations throughout the years, without which this channel could not have lasted as long as it has. For those who are feeling particularly generous, you can still support my work through Patreon and now through Subscribestar as well, through the links in the description below.